Hey guys, how are you? Welcome back to my YouTube channel where I inconsistently post videos. I'm actually currently in Naivasha. I just got here and I figured this would be a nice opportunity for me to have discussions about mental health while I'm here, especially because it has been so soothing, just being here and the scenery, the house, everything is so gorgeous. I'm going to show you a little bit and talk a little bit about mental health. So here is a vlog slash video and a little bit of the scenery in Naivasha and how beautiful it is. I hope you enjoy it. Today I'm specifically here because I really want to talk about mental health, and it's a subject that's been sitting and weighing heavy on my mind. I'm gonna take you through my journey with mental health issues, therapy, and finally we're gonna end with antidepressants, which is where I am currently. So we're gonna talk about it all. Yeah. Let's get into it. The first time that I had a problem versus the first time that I realized I had a problem are actually two completely separate things. So in high school, I was dealing with depression, and at the time when I was in high school, conversations around depression were nobody spoke about it. It was a lot more stigmatized than it is now. So anything to do with mental health was really seen as madness. And even though a lot of places still see people with mental health issues or depression something that is visible and something that you can help somebody out of, and sometimes something that you can tell people to snap out of, it's not. So there's a lot of myths that we're going to demystify in this process at the same time, but also just explaining to you what it was like for me. So I think when I was sitting for my O levels, or when I was in that age, finishing Form 4, finishing high school, I realized that there was something off because I would sometimes just cry. And that was the beginning of the symptoms. I would just cry. But also keeping in mind that by the time I was sitting for my O levels, I had already established myself as an artist in Kenya and was doing performances. I had just started, I started really young. I was on stage at 14. My career was kind of beginning to kick off when I was 16. I had great parents who were allowing me at the time to go out and perform and just live your best life, be a musician. If that's the thing that you want to do, go ahead and do that. So I was doing a lot of work and I was doing a lot of school at the same time and trying to balance, but my entertainment always took precedent. So I was performing, I had live performances, I was doing a bit of acting for theater, and I was sitting for my O-level exams, and I just thought it was, I didn't think that it was anything. I just thought it was just hormonal, which it possibly was, right? I then went and did my A-levels, and this is my first very strong memory that I have of just breaking down in the middle of the school foyer area, and just for no reason, and it was when I was sitting my A-level, so it was for absolutely no reason. So these two incidents have obviously been attached to exams, which is high stress, still hormonal. I'm still a growing teenager. When I was done with school, I didn't go to college, so I finished high school and I started working immediately as an entertainment artist. I used to host karaoke and acting gigs. I was one of those early Phoenix theater actors, and I was there for years. And I used to sing with a band, and I used to host karaoke. So I was working almost every night of the week as soon as I was done with high school. So I remember at Phoenix Theater one time, we were doing a play called Once on This Island. But I remember being on stage one time and not having breaks for my tears. I was standing on stage, thank God it wasn't like my time to sing or I didn't have a line. I just started bawling. I just started bawling. It was so uncontrollable for no reason. No reason, nothing. Life can do that to you. I mean, it's just like sometimes it's overwhelming and you suppress it, and you know, it comes out eventually. I know that I'm like that. If I suppress my emotions, it'll come out in some other way. Sometimes physical ailment. I had a mentor at Phoenix. His name is George Mungai. If you get a chance to watch this, first of all, I owe you everything. George was like my big brother. He really walked and talked to me through everything, including life. He was just the greatest advisor. He was the greatest acting coach that I ever worked with. It was a very beautiful bond that we had, and I'm so grateful that I had him in my life for the period that I did. And he was the one, he said to me that if at any time I felt like I wanted to cry or something like that, then I could just call him and just cry on the phone, and he'll be a great ear, which he did for many years. Actually, I would just like be at home and then I'd call him like, I don't know, it's happening again, I don't know what's wrong, and he was just the perfect guy for that. A few years later, I decided to actually start taking therapy more seriously. I must have been about 18 or 19 when I decided to start taking therapy more seriously, or 20. My first therapy session. My first therapy session was at a money counseling center. A money counseling center is a place where you can go to have really reasonably priced therapy. Sometimes it can be free. I don't know what it depends on, but please, if you can, do so if you can afford it. I'm gonna attach their contacts in the description box below. By this time in my career, I had, you know, I was doing music, stage performances, TV, theater. I had kind of gained a name for myself, and you know, the papers were writing about me every week, and it was just like I was pretty popular at that time. So I had spoken about an incident of sexual assault that happened to me when I was maybe 16 years old to a publication. Somebody then plagiarized the magazine that I had given the story to and decided to like rewrite the story, and that part of my life that really broke me. So there was just like the story had been spoiled because they asked me about it and I refused to answer. So it was just like horrible. It was horrible. And I remember thinking that I needed to go see somebody. So I went to a money counseling center. Now, unfortunately, I feel like the therapist who saw me at that time, let's remember it's probably 18 years ago or so. I know. Like, don't cry. I think she recognized me from like the publications in the newspaper, because while I was sitting in therapy telling her about my sexual assault incident, she said something to me that I hadn't said to her. And I was like, I didn't tell you that piece of information, but I know that that piece of information was in the paper. So I was just like, yeah, no, I can't see this woman again, because she obviously knows more about my life than I'm willing to share. Like with therapy, you really want to go in and not have to be an artist or not have to be a content creator or whatever. So I never went back to Amani. So I went to this community church establishment type thing where they had like a pastor who was a therapist, and we spoke a little bit about life. I went for one session where we spoke a little bit about life. I really wanted to get to know him better, about where his belief systems were. This is also the time in my life when I'm establishing my queerness and just like, you know, learning more about myself and living my life. So I obviously don't want to be with anybody who has taken like a traditional Christian opinion into their work, because then my queerness won't fit into your manifesto. He was just like, yeah, no, I don't think it's you know, he doesn't agree with it, or whatever it was he used, whatever terms he was. I was just like, okay, then you're obviously not the therapist for me. I took a break after that and sort of just like decided that I was going to find the right therapist. And I think after a few years, I finally found somebody who was great. I really liked her. She was in Westlands. It was kind of central, close to where I lived. I think around this time is when my mom died, and that was 7 years ago. So the therapist that I was seeing before my mom died became the therapist that saved my life after my mom died, because I think that was definitely one of my darkest times ever, dealing with my mom's death and explaining to myself, because I had spent my entire life with my mother. When I was in prep school, she was the caterer at the school. When I sat for my A-levels, she was a caterer at that school. My mother paid for my education. And we just kind of like, we had a really, really, really close relationship. Anybody who knows me knows that. And losing her was just the greatest pain in my life that I've ever had to endure for a long period of time. Even in my adulthood, I was still super clingy with my mom. I was like attached to her hip. You know how those kids, those little babies don't let their mothers go? Yeah, that was me throughout my entire life. I was super clingy with my mom. We were very close. We shared almost everything together, all our secrets. And I mean, she was perfect for advice. I mean, sometimes I look back at my life and I think, if I could love me. In fact, that's one of the things that makes me cry. If I could love me as much as my mom loves me, or if I could see me through my mother's eyes, then, maybe I would begin to live differently or with more purpose, when I'm going through stuff. After my mom died, the therapist, she saved my life, because in my head, the voice in my head was telling me that my mom has spent her whole life with me, and because she's gone, it means that I have to go with her. It's the only thing that made sense in my life at the time. My mom needs me. She needs to understand how to navigate the afterlife. The only thing that made sense to me at that time was that I needed to take my life. And I was so sure about that I needed to take my life because I needed to be with my mom, because she couldn't be without me, and I can't be without her. So I started researching painless ways in which I could take my life, and I was having conversations with my therapist about it at the time. I just having suicidal thoughts a lot for a long time. And my therapist really, really, really helped me at that time. Getting me out of that space. Yeah, and also I had a partner at the time that was really, I think that partner was sent to me to be with me through that time, because they were really patient with me at the time. And I also felt like they gave me meaning and purpose. So I stayed with this therapist for maybe 2 years, and then I took a break from therapy. I think maybe it was a year or so, and then I started seeing another therapist. I just thought that, that therapist was good for that, and I needed to see somebody new, somebody who's going to introduce me to newness, a new life, talk about other things, whatever. But I definitely knew that there's a lot of things that have happened in my life. There's so many incidents of sexual assault that happened, some when I was a kid. So there's so many things that I'm sort of unlearning, unraveling. And I think the journey with therapy is mostly unlearning. And I spent a couple of years just doing nothing, maybe even being a little bit destructive. And then I decided to go back into therapy, and I found a new therapist. So she was wonderful, really holistic, very into yoga and meditation and art and all of the ways in which I needed healing at that time in my life. So it was really perfect. Going through something else, maybe a breakup or something, there was always something that triggered me and made me feel like I was down in the dumps. Now, the thing with depression versus sadness is that you're able to talk yourself out of sadness. You're able to work your way out of sadness. Depression actually is a brain disorder where it reduces the amount of serotonin that is released into your body is either limited, which means you don't get enough serotonin, which means you can't deal with regular shit like a regular person, or it's released too fast into your system, which means it might get used up at night when you're sleeping, or in the morning when you wake up, and then the rest of the day there's like not enough serotonin to go to evenly stretch throughout your day, which is why sometimes the antidepressants that you're given are used to rectify that. When I was seeing this therapist, I mean, I loved her. She was super cool, and you know, I was doing more yoga, more wellness, all of that good stuff. My mom thing came up so much, and just other stuff in life, breakups, work, who knows. But all of these little triggers were adding up, and then once I'm down, it's just impossible. It feels impossible to get me back out of that space. And she recommended that I take these antidepressants that were like natural. And I started taking those. And I remember that like maybe for the first like week, I felt a little bit better. But after that, every single time I took a pill, it would just like, it's almost like it would drop my serotonin levels. And I thought, you know, because I've been talking to people about antidepressants, I thought that maybe that's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to just like feel really shitty and then you feel great. But it was just not working. I think I did a month on it, maybe even less, because I would take a pill and then like an hour later, I would just bawl. Oh, it made me so depressed. It just made me feel worse. And so I stopped. I was actually better off without it. I felt like my levels were low, but then when I took the pill, they dropped even lower. I stopped taking those drugs, like fuck it, and decided to also take a break from therapy for a while. But last year in 2019, something happened to me. I hadn't had therapy for about a year, and something happened to me in May of 2019. I had an incident where I was sexually assaulted by somebody that was my friend. And of course, that was such a spiral for me. It was such a spiral because I thought, you know, I just thought I had walked away from all of that shit in my life, but obviously the patriarchy is still the patriarchy. And it was 2 weeks before the first annual Spread Festival. Whew. So, I'm organizing a festival for the first time in my life. I'm dealing with sexual assault, trying to get into therapy, trying not to kill myself, basically. And I started seeing a new therapist because I decided that I wanted to see a sex therapist specifically at the time. And that's the therapist that I'm seeing now. So, fast forward to 2020. 2020 for everybody was supposed to be like this really brilliant year. But obviously things didn't work out quite as everybody had planned. So I'm pretty sure that anyone who's been dealing with shit is probably dealing with so much shit right now. So just to let you know, you're not on your own. And the reason that I'm doing this actually is because I really wanted, when I was down in the dumps this year in 2020, I was looking for something, and I don't know what it was. It was like content. I was looking for content from people that were Black, from people that were on the continent, from people that were from Kenya, who are talking about their journey with mental health that would be helpful for me, including conversations around antidepressants. My therapist never suggested that I should take antidepressants. It's just that I had literally gotten to my wit's end of this anxiety and depression, that I was willing to see an alternative way of living, and decided to take antidepressants that I understood were going to take at least 6 months to even out, and will probably be taken for a year or maybe longer. So I've wasted years in my life because I've been unable to function, unable to get out of bed, unable to shower, unable to think, and I wanted something different. I just wanted to see what life on the other side was. So I called my therapist in one of my most, again, suicidal moments. This was happening earlier this year. And I said to her that, honestly, this is gonna be my last hope. This is my last straw. I just wanna see if it's going to work. Like, does this feeling go away? and my therapist recommended me to a doctor who I love. I'm so happy that I love these medical practitioners, who then subscribed me with an antidepressant. And I think we're going to continue the story. We're going to end here, and we're going to continue the story in the next video, just so that I can have an episode where I'm talking specifically about antidepressants. And if you need help with therapists, I've put them in the description box below. If you need help with, if there's anything else that I can add, I will definitely add it so that you can get the help that you need. And that's how I would like to play my part, because I felt like I had to braille my way through mental health and figuring out ways in which I can help myself. And I'm not there. I'm far from there yet. I'm so far, but I am definitely better than I was a couple of months ago. And I had a friend who literally held my hand with the yoga every single morning. And we've done July, August. So it's almost 2 months where we do yoga every morning. And I've basically worked out every day from the 1st of July. And I intend to continue doing that until maybe the end of the year. It's something that I want to continue. And stay tuned for part 2 of the video where we will be talking about antidepressants. Thank you guys for allowing me the space to air this. And for holding space for me if you've watched this up until the end. I really appreciate you. And peace.